Probably the biggest thing that you're going to see, and you haven't dealt with these yet, it's what we call significant figures, okay? We just abbreviate it sig figs. We're going to end up, I'm just working on our plans for next week, we're going to end up talking about significant figures next week, but they're very important. Like I said, you don't know them yet, so don't worry if you have the values a little bit incorrect. We'll learn that in a little bit here. We'll learn that later. But we're just going to start off looking at number 1 here, and hopefully these things are easy for you. 3x equals 27. What am I going to do? I'm going to divide both sides by 3. X is then going to be equal to 9 in my math. All right? Always make sure when you have an answer, you box it so that I can see exactly where your answer is at. Okay? I go through and I look at the work, then I see the answer. Next one here. 25t is equal to 7.0. Once again, I want to solve for t, so I'm going to divide both sides by 25. That one cancels. It's going to get me t is equal to, let me get my handy dandy calculator out because I don't really know what 7.0 divided by 25 is, and it comes out to 0.28. Square in my answer. Any questions? All right. Now, a little bit different one. X over 3.0 equals 10. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to multiply both sides by 3.0. Those cancel. It's going to give me X is equal to 30. Square in my answer. Number 4. A is equal to V over T. And I'm solving right here for V. So I want to get V by itself. So I'm going to multiply by T on both sides. So my answer now, I get those to cancel, is just going to be an equation. V is equal to A times T. Once again, I'm just manipulating the equation. Just manipulating the equation. Any questions on 3 and 4? Awesome. Gotta get rid of this stuff. Okay, 5. We're getting here a little bit. Okay, length times width times height equals volume. I'm solving for L. So, L times W times H equals V. What I'm going to do, solving for L, I'm going to divide both sides by WH. By WH, so I get cancellations there because anything over itself is what? What's anything over itself? 1, right? Anything over itself is 1. So, L is equal to V over W times H. Now, getting a little bit tougher on this next one because D equals 1/2 A times T squared. What I do with this one here is I get that 1/2 out of there and I just make that 0.5. Because what is 0.5? 1/2, right? So I make that 0.5 A times T squared. I'm solving for T, so I'm going to divide by 0.5A, 0.5A. So now T, and I'm just going to clean this up a little bit here. That cancels out. So T is equal to D over 0.5a. T squared, excuse me, T squared. I'm just solving for T though. So I got to take the square root of that. So T is equal to the square root of D over 0.5a. We okay with that? Understand what I did? Give me a thumbs up here. Okay? Okay, what don't we get? Which part? Why I did the square root? Yeah. It was squared, so in order to get that T by itself, only T, I've got to square root it. Okay? Now, probably the toughest one here is going to be this one right here, number 7. P1 V1 over T1 is equal to P2 V2 all over T2. Now, with this particular one, this is, I believe, the combined gas law. We'll run into things like this probably about third 9 weeks, okay? But this is the combined gas law, pressure times volume over temperature. All right? That's what the P's and the V's and the T's are, pressure, volume, and temperature. And the 1s and 2s just mean like the first reading and the second reading. All right? So we're using this equation to see some changes here. But I want to solve for T squared. Now the first, T2, not T squared, T2. First thing I'm going to do is I want to get everything out of the denominator. What's the denominator? The bottom one, right? Numerator's top, denominator's the bottom. All right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply this side by T2, multiply this side by T2. Because what I do to one side, I have to do to the other side, correct? Is this coming back, this algebra stuff? You did it last year, right? Hopefully. Okay? So I have now canceled out my T squares. So I'm just going to get that out of there. Okay? I'm also going to get this T1 out of there. I said T squared again, T2, I'm sorry. So I have to multiply again by T1 on this side, so I'm going to multiply this side by T1. So when I clean this thing up, because it looks awful ugly now, I get T2 P1 V1 is equal to P2 V2 D1. With me so far? All I've done is get that baby out of the denominator, get everything up on top. Can I move on? We good? Now I just got to solve for T squared, or excuse me, T2. Dang it. So I'm going to take P1 V1 and divide by both sides. P1 V1. Well, P1 over P1 is 1. V1 over V1 is 1. So when I clean this baby up, I get T2 is equal to P2 V2 T1 all over P1 V1. Box it in, my final answer. Now, like I said, that's a little bit of a tougher one, but you should have probably seen stuff like that last year in algebra, right? Okay. We're just trying to stir up the minds again. Stir up the minds. Now, let me get this gobbledygook out of there, because I need to work this one here, number 8. Find 18.5% of 250 grams. Now, as I'm looking at this, ladies and gentlemen, I know I'm dealing with the percentage, correct? So, a percentage is really out of 100, right? Okay, a percentage is really out of 100. So if I were going to put 18.5% into a decimal, okay, because I want to get that percentage out of there, okay, so 18.5% is equal to what over 250 grams? And that decimal point you're going to see in a little bit, that's going to matter actually. So what I want to do is I want to get this 18.5% out of a percentage and get it into a decimal form. All right? So I know that 18.5% is like 18.5 over 100, right? So what I'm going to do is I would move my decimal point 2 spots, so as a decimal, it's 0.185. All I've done is taken 18.5% divided by 100. Now, that makes it a little bit easier for me now because I can multiply this by 250. That looks like a decimal point. Dang it. So I don't want to get us confused. Multiply that side by 250, this side by 250. This cancels. So x is going to be 250 times 0.185. And that gives me a value of 46.25 grams. Now, like I said, if that's the answer you got, that is, you've done your math correct. Now, I'm going to add something into this because this is where sig figs come in. And when I'm looking at sig figs, and you don't know this yet, this number has 3 significant figures, so does this one. So my answer here can only have 3 figures on it, and I have 4. So when I do this the best, I'm going to round it. And once again, when I round this, you're going to say, Braun, you're crazy, because 46.25 rounds to 46.3. But you'll learn that also, and that's what we call the even rule. That'll be coming next week too, okay? So if you got 46.25 grams, don't worry about that. That's good enough right now because you don't know sig figs. You don't know the even rule. But to be most correct, the answer is 46.2 grams, okay? Let me get this stuff off my board. Let's move on a bit. Nice and easy, but this again I'm going to show you. Whoa. Nice and easy. 30.89 minus 14.4. It's going to give me 9.4 points. Got to borrow 16.49. Now, once again, I'm going to look at sig figs, and this is a little bit different, okay? I'm going to look at sig figs, so my sig fig is right there. You'll learn this later. So my correct answer for this one is 16.5 liters. Final answer. Once again, if you got 16.49, don't worry about it. The sig figs will come later. 142 times 20. I take 142, I times it by 20, I get 2840 cm. Ooh, what is that? Cm squared is my label. And anytime we have labels, we have to include them. All right? Now, my problem with this one is, as I'm looking at sig figs, here's 3, Here's 2. My number here can only have 2 significant figures. So the most correct answer for this one is 2800. And what you're going to see, folks, later on is when we're talking about any number, you have to have sig figs. If you don't have sig figs, you'll lose points on a test or a quiz, okay, or a WebAssign. Sig figs are important, and it's all based on measuring. Okay, let's look at number 11. Number 11 says 5 samples have the following masses. All right, 3 sig figs, 3 sig figs. All of them have 3 sig figs. So I'm going to take 65.7 plus 69.3 plus 84.1 plus 77.4 plus 80.8. That's going to give me a value of 377.3. I'm going to divide that to get the average by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I divide that by 5. My average is 75.46 grams. But once again, like I just said before, all of those values had 3 sig figs. So I'm going to have 3 sig figs here. So 75.4, does that 6 round that 4 up? Yes, it does. 75.5 grams is the correct answer. Once again, if you have 75.46, that's good enough for right now. Good enough for right now. All right. The next one, number 12, tells me that a biology student planted 125 petunia seeds and 84 germinated. What percentage of the seeds germinated? What's germinate? Yeah, Andrew, or Adam, I'm sorry. Yeah, it grows. Germinates just means they're growing. So right here, I'm just doing a percentage. What percentage of the seeds grew? Well, 84 grew out of the 125. So in order to get this into a percentage, I'm going to get a value right here, 84 divided by 125. That gives me a value of 0.672. To get that in percentage, I have to multiply it by 100. So I multiply 100, and I get 67.2%. Now, as I'm looking, 125 has 3 sig figs. 84 has 2 sig figs. So my answer can only have 2 sig figs. So my answer here is 67% based on sig figs. 13 is a pretty easy one. It says Tiffany records the temperature outside her classroom each day for a period of 1 week. Here are her observations. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You can read the temperatures. What was the temperature range for the week? So if I'm getting the range, I need to find the biggest and the smallest. So my smallest number looks like it's 17.9 degrees Celsius. The range is to 21.4 degrees Celsius. So there's my answer. It's between 17.9 degrees Celsius and 21.4 degrees Celsius. Number 14. Number 14 says, an analyst of a new ore shows that it contains an average of 1.2 grams of feldspar in every 7.5 grams of the ore. What amount of feldspar would you be able to get from 500 grams of this ore? So I'm going to have to set up a proportion here. I know that 1.2 grams of feldspar for every 7.5 grams. That's what's given to me. Well, how many can I get if I had 500 grams. So I'm going to solve for x right here. When I'm solving for x, what I do, and I don't know if they still call it this in math, I cross multiply and divide. They still call it that? So I cross multiply, so I get 7.5x is equal to 1.2 times 500. That gives me 600. I divide both sides by 7.5. So 600 divided by 7.5, x is equal to 80. And it's going to be grams. Now, the thing about this one here, I'm going to have to put a decimal right there. The reason I had to put a decimal right there is to make that number significant, because I need two significant figures. Once again, you'll see sig figs later. If you just had 80 grams, that's fine for right now. Last one here, number 15, is also setting up a proportion. An oceanographer measures the water pressure at 63.1 atmospheres at a depth of 625 meters. At what depth would he expect to find a pressure of 150.0 atmospheres? Well, 63.1 atmospheres at 625 meters. I set up my proportion, and I say, okay, I have 150.0 atmospheres. What depth would that be? Once again, I cross multiply and divide, so 63.1 x is equal to 150 times 625, and that gives me a big value of 93750. So I'm going to take 63.1, divide it by both sides. This cancels here. So my x is going to be the 93750 divided by 63.1. X is going to give me a big, long number. And where am I going to put this big, long number? I'm just going to put it up. I'll do it in a different color here. 1, 4, 5, or excuse me, 8, 5, 1, 4, 1, 4, 8, 5.736926 is the number my calculator spit out to me. Now, based on significant figures, and this whole thing deals with our tools that we're measuring with, all right? Based on significant figures, I see 3, I see 3, I see 4 right here. So I'm going to make this into 3 significant figures. So this one, and this one are my 3 significant figures. Okay? That 5, since it has numbers behind it, that 5 is going to round that up. So my correct answer for this one, 1,490, and I need a label on that. What's my label going to be? Meters. Questions on that one? Do we understand the cross multiplying, dividing, the setting up proportions? Because we're going to be dealing a lot with that too. We okay with the skills review worksheet? Give me a thumbs up if we are. I want to see them. Awesome. Okay, awesome.